What if Palkia was in Gen 1 Ubers? Welcome back to my celebration of 800 subscribers, which is weird because I am at 845, meaning that I am already getting close to 900 if you really think about it. We did Palkia last night, or yesterday, technically, now that I look at the time. And now I am doing Palkia. This is the one that I by far predicted would be the best one. And this is going to be hard to explain, but if you're asking yourself, is Palkia better than Dialga? And the main reason why you might think this is because Spatial Ren normally has a high crit rate, it's 100 base power, which means that in Gen 1 it's an auto crit, meaning just like Stone Edge, it's essentially a base 200 base power move. Compared to Dialga's Roar of Time, which acts like Hyper Beam, which is still really strong, but it has its issues of being a special move with a whole bunch of high special Pokemon, meaning it can't just be spammed. So yeah, you might think to yourself, is Palkia better? And the answer is a big, definitive yes'nt. One matchup, you can probably guess which one it is, but there's one matchup that Palkia has that kinda fundamentally, how do I say this? Makes Palkia nowhere near as broken as I thought it would be. Because this one matchup can kinda just completely change just how Palkia is played. And it's really, really, really funny. Let's start off with just the typing. Dialga, I would say, is better, because if you saw yesterday's episode, being a Steel Dragon just gives you so many different stupid resistances. Meanwhile, Water Dragon is also amazing. Both are easily S-tier type combinations, because with Water Dragon, outside of their own Spatial Ren from an enemy Palkia, there is nothing that is super effective against Dragon. And outside of just Roar of Time and Spatial Ren, there is just Dragon Rage. And like I said for yesterday's video, we're under the assumption that for each of the individual videos, only the one being covered is added. So there's no Dialga with Roar of Time. The only real Dragon move is Spatial Ren, meaning the only thing that's super effective against Palkia is another Palkia. And yes, that is a very big deal. Now, Palkia's stats are almost identical to Dialga's, except their HP and speed were switched, and their defense and special defense. And obviously, Water Dragon is different than Steel Dragon. Mostly because, even though you have no weaknesses, you also don't have the most viable resistances to... Or actually, the four most popular offensive types, Normal, Psychic, Electric, and Ice, you all take neutrally. Which obviously... that's not bad. Not bad at all. But it does mean that unlike Dialga, who resist, I think, literally all of them but Ice, taking it neutrally is most of the time fine, but it'll hurt just a little bit more. But not a big deal. Definitely not. And just like Dialga, his move pool is amazing. He has, quite frankly, everything he could ever want. But I think, unlike Dialga, you don't really suffer that much from 4 move swat syndrome, because while Palkia, or not Palkia, Dialga has Hyper Beam and Roar of Time for its main moves, Palkia gets both of the auto crits. He gets Spatial Rend, but he also gets Slash. So yeah, he's honestly, in terms of Palkia offensively, he's literally just a more consistent version of what Dialga would look like when you see its move pool. And yeah, this right here is a big deal. This is a... yeah, this being an auto crit is just so stupid. Not as stupid as Stone Edge. Sorry. Because Stone Edge, that's really dumb, because there's so many other Pokemon that get it, not just Palkia. Not just Stab. Like, Tauros gets freaking Stone Edge. That's insane and kind of busted. Aerodactyl gets it. And having a fast Pokemon with 100 5 attack, I think. With Stab Stone Edge, that's just evil. Not to mention, somebody that I'm friends with who watches these videos and also participates in the Generation Jumble, Rebel Push. He was doing some testing with Pokemon with all of their moves. Aerodactyl with Stone Edge and Hone Claws is absolutely terrifying. Hone Edge makes Stone Edge just, like, I think it just makes it 100% accurate or close to that. And then even the attack boost, you might think doesn't make a big deal, because Stone Edge is always a crit, but that attack boost literally just means that Earthquake hits harder. It's just terrifying to deal with. But we're getting off track. Palkia, outside of these two amazing moves, he also has Earthquake, Fire Blast, Hydro Pump, Blizzard. It was up there, but I forgot to mention it. Rock Slide is bad, but you also have Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave, and you obviously do have Hyper Beam along with just Slash. But there's not much of a difference. It's just like a difference of 10 base power. You should just go with Slash. Especially since it is like a 50% damage range for Chansey. So you're just better off going with that. Especially since your other moves, Special Rend, can actually hit very similarly. So I think the best set for Palkia is probably just Thunder Wave. Not sure why I delete Spatial Rend. Obviously you have Spatial Rend, but if you don't want it, go ahead. And then Hydro Pump, I guess. Just so that you can just OHKO like right on if for some reason he exists in this format. I know you're thinking, this looks problematic. And for a lot of replays, you're probably going to see Palkia just absolutely one-shot everything. But to my surprise, Spatial Rend is fine. There's only one Pokemon that you guys can possibly think could make Spatial Rend fine. So do you guys just want to watch it? Let's just watch it, shall we? Okay, so Palkia versus Mewtwo. Mewtwo goes for Amnesia, but I think Psychic is a 2-hit KO anyways. This is the replay. Mewtwo can just go for Recover, and keep in mind that Spatial Rend is 8 power points. So Mewtwo PP stalling Spatial Rend is something very easy that it can do. As long as it isn't paralyzed and is faster than the Palkia, it can just do this. And while I know you're thinking, technically could Palkia go for Thunder Wave? True, I guess. I guess it could. But even then, like at that point you need like just Paralysis Look in order for Mewtwo not to outstall Spatial Rend. And also, like in the first replay, like Mewtwo outstalled the Spatial Rend, but then while putting up another Amnesia, a critical Hydro Pump killed it off. But that's also when I realized, wait, Hydro Pump is still only 8 power points. So in a real setting, the most optimal thing Mewtwo would do is literally PP stall both stab moves. PP stalling Amnesia as well as Hydro Pump. That was a little bit of a misplay there, but as you can see, it literally got the crit. So if anything, it kind of just proved my point. So Mewtwo heals off that. Palkia runs out of Hydro Pumps outside of one. And I guess a special drop. But you got another crit. So once again, just kind of proving my point. And even Slash does that much. Just a fourth. So this was so goddamn funny to see. And yeah, I'm gonna say that Mewtwo existing and being faster with Recover, that alone would make Spatial Rend fine. Because while there is a risk of getting paralyzed, even a paralyzed Mewtwo can a lot of the time potentially go for, Recover, and most of the time it'll probably just get it anyways. But it's still the fact of the matter that with so few power points of just 8, even paralyzing Mewtwo is just half the battle. Because you can very easily sacrifice one Pokemon, or even use multiple, to, stall just an extra, power point or two of Spatial Rend. So Palkia is in a state where it's, Spatial Rends are very, very valuable. But since Mewtwo can always stall it out, even if paralyzed, which by the way, with Palkia now in the format, you're going to try a lot harder to make sure your Mewtwo doesn't get paralyzed. But there's also just enemy Palkias too, or there's stuff that can paralyze the Palkia before you send out the Mewtwo, meaning even if you paralyze the Mewtwo, it'll just be faster than you again. Especially since if Mewtwo uses Amnesia, even if somehow the Palkia was faster, when they're both paralyzed, Mewtwo just becomes faster again because of the glitch. So it's just, this is quite literally the funniest outcome, I think, out of any of my videos. The fact that Palkia, with the signature auto-crit dragon move, can be easily just be balanced by Mewtwo just doing regular Mewtwo things. And technically, like I said, Mewtwo could have just gone for Psychic instead of Amnesia. And if Mewtwo got a crit, or if it got a special drop, those are also things that Palkia doesn't like. I love what I do. I really do. I love making these videos so much, because you genuinely don't actually know what to expect. Gen 1 mechanics are so weird and clunky that things that you would think would be too dangerous, or things that would be too broken, sometimes can be fine. And then other times, you're like, wow, on paper, this looks really great. It has these things that would definitely dominate OU. But then they don't. Or then you go in the Ubers, and then Mewtwo reminds you why he's still the king. Mine is Swacking. The Swacking is literally the only Pokemon that has ever given Mewtwo trouble, since, 2 slashes just kill Mewtwo, and Mewtwo can't recover off the damage in time. Which I will say, that alone is very fitting, that the only thing that can beat the greatest Psychic type ever would be the theoretical greatest normal type ever. So that's fun. But let's just get on to the other replays. I'll show Mew at the end, because I'm sure you guys are curious how that would go. Starting off with the third best Pokemon in the format, Snorlax. I guess technically, Snorlax could go for Self-Destruct, which would be a good trade-off. But I'm still going to put this in good matchups, mostly because if you're forcing the Snorlax to explode in the first place, on a Pokemon that isn't Mewtwo, I'm going to argue that's always going to be a better trade for the Palkia player. Not that Palkia isn't valuable. An auto-crit Spatial Rend on regular Pokemon that aren't legendaries, that's obviously a big deal. But as we see here, there's no question that Mewtwo is still, by far, the most valuable Pokemon. So, trading the third best for the second best, I think that's still better for the person who still has their Mewtwo. But I guess in that situation, it's technically both of them, except one of them would have a... I don't know. I'm going down the rabbit hole. Chansey's funny. With Paralysis, this stalwart can go on for a while. But I think that... Okay, this matchup maybe could go either way. But since Slash does 45 to 50, I'm going to say Palkia probably wins most of the time. Because of that, I'm going to say that this is a good matchup. Because Chansey's a Pokemon that could very much annoy Mewtwo with Light Screen. But Palkia here, even if Palkia loses, it is definitely going to stall out a lot of Chansey's soft boils. And if that's if that's true, and that's what happens, if that's the case, Mewtwo can very easily just come in and take over. Chansey has way fewer soft boils they can use, which in turn would mean that Mewtwo doesn't have to waste as much of its power points. So Palkia, even though, like, theoretically, Mewtwo is the thing that just completely stops it, like most legendaries, especially for my videos where the context you're just adding one at a time, they are, even if they don't do crap to Mewtwo, at the very least, them existing in the format weakens all of Mewtwo's checks, which in turn makes Mewtwo more powerful. And Palkia is one of the ones where you can't actually really use it to beat your Mewtwo. Technically you could. There's always going to be scenarios with Paralysis, or the opponent doesn't heal their Mewtwo and they don't play around the crit, so Hydro Pump maybe misses, or whatever. But I don't really think that counts when it turns to like me making a tier list determining what's the good viability is for these guys. And yes, I did somehow forget to do Tauros before Chansey and Snorlax, but technically since it's Ubers, it's technically more relevant anyways, those two, than Tauros's. Because they are definitely better than Snorlax, or no, Snorlax and Chansey are definitely better than Tauros and Ubers. Not that Tauros does have its place, but seeing how high it has, or how good he is in regular OU, the fact that in Ubers, he's usually just used as a lead for immediate damage and for freaking stomp flinches, that's a little bit of a fall from grace, in my opinion. To the point where I might even consider Jinx a better Pokemon than Tauros and Ubers. But that's a story for another day. And next off, I think this is Executor, yeah. This is just, you either miss the Sweet Powder or you don't. I got cocky, or not so much cocky, I just sort of assumed that Slash would have done enough there. It wasn't, unless it was a damage range. So, that serves me right for just getting, a cocky and, the chat here. But, yeah, it's... I'm gonna say, even though I'm gonna put this in a could go either way, considering Executor is usually one of two Pokemon that are supposed to, have Mewtwo Fear, depending on if it runs Thunderbolt or Ice Beam. Yeah, this is still a big deal. Palkia can deal with most of Executor's HP in a worst case scenario. And unless that Executor wants to use Leech Seed and Mega Drain, or if it wants to use freaking Rest, it's not getting that HP back. And if it's not getting that HP back, then Mewtwo just easily revenge kills. Even with its way of healing, Mega Drain and Leech Seed are about as good as they sound when using on a Palkia. And if it uses Rest, that just gives Mewtwo the chance to just amnesia up. And even if it's running Thunderbolt, at that point it could just kill Executor with Psychics. There's not much to say there. But I'm sure you're curious if Alakazam could theoretically outstall Palkia as well, with its own Recover. And the answer is no. As you can see here, Slash or Spatial Rend does more than enough. So you don't even need Slash, which is interesting. And I didn't make a Starmie replay. And I know you're thinking I probably should, because that could be an interesting case as well. But even if we ignore Spatial Rend, Alakazam has more special than Starmie does. But let's just ignore that for a second. Palkia still has Thunderbolt. So, in the worst case scenario, it won't even need to waste its Spatial Rend power points. It can just use Thunderbolt, and that's good enough to kill Starmie, even if it's the 2 KO. At that point, you can just fish for crits. But you might not even want to do that with Starmie and Alakazam. Because to be honest, I think both of them will probably know that they can't beat you anyways. So I think their main job would be paralyzing you. Since if a Palkia gets paralyzed even once, it is no longer able to theoretically beat Mewtwo in a PP war. Well, technically it can, because it's paralysis if Mewtwo gets unlucky, but Palkia doesn't. But you get the point. You get the point here. Yeah. This, I don't know why I'm stalling. Probably because it's anywhere near as many replays as it normally is. Because, surprise, surprise, I don't need to show you Palkia doing infinite damage. So I'm trying to find something to talk about. Such as Jinx. It's just the same thing as Palkia. Or not Palkia. Same thing as Executor. You either miss the lovely kids or you don't. And for those of you who are curious, is Slash better? Because obviously Jinx has much lower defense. No, absolutely not. Slash actually does a little bit worse. Nothing relevant though, as you can see there, it's very easily a 2 KO. But I do think it's interesting. I think this right here shows that Stab, just how much more important Stab is, as well as just base attacks and special attacks. Because Palkia doesn't have bad attack at all. He has 120, but 150 is just a little bit higher. And Spatial Ren definitely has much higher base power than Slash. It's a base 200 move, basically, versus a base 140, since they're always crits. There's something interesting to talk about, because I think a lot of times people sometimes overestimate or underestimate how much damage certain moves do. Right now in Generation Jumble Season 2, which, by the way, you should definitely go and participate in. All you need to do is just join my Discord server, and in the description of this video, there is a link that gives you all the information you would want to know about Generation Jumble Season 2. It's pretty great, but one thing I happen to explain to some new people, let me say that again, because I think I said that too fast. Something I have to explain to some new people is Hyper Beam, because Hyper Beam is a very powerful move, but I very often see people using it on a non-stab Pokemon like Haxorus without getting a Sword Stance boost or stab, and then they're always disappointed when it just barely doesn't do enough damage, and then they just lose their Pokemon. Like, some of these moves are strong. Hyper Beam is strong, Slash is strong, but a lot of times they don't do the damage you want them to do without stab, or for Hyper Beam's case, without Sword Stance or stab. It's just something that you should just keep in mind of. A lot of these moves could be... they can still be good, don't get me wrong. But just remember that high numbers on your move aren't everything. Sometimes you just gotta look more closely. Remember, stab is usually, at least for Gen 1, I think it's basically like a 50% boost. So theoretically, a ground type using Earthquake, that Earthquake is literally hitting as hard as a Hyper Beam. So for the case of Jinx, even though there's a low defense, Spatial Ren is always going to be better than Slash. I went on a long tangent there, I'm not sure why. I have ADHD, I just get distracted sometimes. Only one more replay, and that's with Mew. You're probably wondering if Mew, at the very least, can PP stall. And the answer is no. Ignoring the fact they both share a speed tier, as you can see there, Spatial Run does 80%. Even if the Mew healed, it would have gone up to, what was that? What was that again? It was at, oh, we're gonna find out right now. 80 or 20%. If it healed, it would have went to 70, so it would have killed either way. Actually, now that I look at it that way, Mew should probably be just moved from good matchups all the way to great. Maybe some of these I should have considered doing, and maybe something like Jolteon should be bad, because even though the Palkia kills it, Jolteon's definitely gonna outspeed and paralyze. I'm not really sure how to rank this. And this I should probably put in good. Tauros is here still because it's not great. Even though even a critical Hyper Beam doesn't always kill you, there's always a chance that Tauros can get a paralysis with Body Slam, or critical Body Slam paralysis and then hits you with a critical Hyper Beam, because it's Tauros. But overall, I don't think there's anything else I really need to go over with the rest of them. Most of you guys can assume that a Palkia that could theoretically always crit on a Spatial Ren will always just dominate these regular Pokemon. But it's just so funny that Mewtwo counters it so hard, so much harder than any other legendary I've ever gone over, that it somehow balances out the format. Could be very different in a future season of Generation Jumble, where I add, most likely all 3 Creation Trio members. And I think if that were to happen, Palkia most likely would be problematic. But even then, it's not that hard to just ban Spatial Ren, just like we did for Direclaw for Generation Jumble Season 2. Once again, you should join the server and you should participate in the Generation Jumble. It is a lot of fun, and if you like these what if videos, I think you'll like them even more if you could actually participate in a what if video, because that's essentially what the Generation Jumble really is. Also, thank you for all the support I've been getting. I think there's a real chance I might be able to get to 900 subscribers by the end of the month. At the time of recording, it's the 27th. So if you're not subscribed, please do it. It helps out a lot. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.